Kelly Anderson, and I'd like to welcome all of you to ISS Group's process improvement demonstration titled Process Metrics. In this 30-minute or so presentation, my colleague Mike Markowitz will demonstrate how the 21st Century Organization uses process digitization methodology along with our business process improvement solution called iPurchase. In this week's presentation, we'll be demonstrating our iPurchase process metrics functionality. You will see how this can serve as a powerful tool for measuring a company's business processes for optimized performance. Supply chain and IT professionals especially can better understand the relative effectiveness of their efforts and find areas of opportunity to improve upon for savings and future growth. ISS Group solutions provide updated key performance metrics to include requisition to order cycle time, number of approvers per requisition, cycle time by month, rejection code analysis, activity summary by originator, and so much more. Having the ability to obtain and monitor key metrics allows an organization to move quickly towards process improvement, the goal being to effectively yield efficient processes and ultimately deliver increased savings and productivity to your company. At ISS Group, we are focused on our customer success, and we strive to help them evaluate how they continually make the appropriate adjustments and changes to critical processes. This is the heart of our number one objective, is process improvement. Mike will now demonstrate how iPurchase is a fast and effective way to improve your procurement process. Again, welcome to the weekly demonstration, Process Metrics, and with that, I'll pass over the demonstration to Mike to begin the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly, for the introduction. We are going to just jump right into the system and start to demonstrate how Process Metrics works within iPurchase. So let me bring up the system. Everyone should be seeing my screen, and I am at the requisition inquiry screen for iPurchase. All I'm going to do here is just remove the filter so we can have all the data available to us for our metrics. To get or to see the metrics within the iPurchase solution, the user would just click the metrics button on the functional toolbar on the top of the screen. So we are now in the metrics screen, and as you can see, there are 5 cells. I call each one of these a cell, and there's 5 of them. So I'm going to go through each one of these cells, and then we're going to talk about the filter criteria on the top of the page. So let's start in the top left-hand corner here. We're going to do cycle time by month. So what this cell is showing the user who's logged into the system is how many requisitions have either been approved or rejected within a specific month, and how long does it take to approve or reject these requisitions. So as you can see, the highlighted one, or the row that I have highlighted now, is May of 2015. Then there's April, February, and you can scroll down and go all the way back. There are some from 2013 requisitions that have been approved and rejected. And then you can tell from this how many hours it's taking to approve these requisitions. So as you can see, in October of 2013, why did it take 12.8 hours to approve these 23 requisitions? So the person or user that is looking at this cell can say, maybe I need to have a conversation with the approvers and figure out why this is happening and figure out another way to stop this from happening. So you can get back to the 0.1s or the zeros that we see in the following months here. The next cell that we have is the rejection code analysis. So let me explain rejection codes in iPurchase before we get into this cell. When an approver goes into a requisition and rejects the requisition, he has to pick a rejection code, and he has to put a rejection description in before the requisition can be rejected. Now, these rejection codes are stored in the system settings within the admin section of iPurchase, which your system administrator will create. You can create as many rejection codes as you like. So then when the user goes in and picks the rejection code, this is where it's going to show up also in this box here, or this cell, as I've been calling them. And you can see that there's been 11 rejected because of incorrect account, 6 for unknown, and 3 for incorrect pricing. So you can say, wow, that's a lot, 11 rejected requisitions that have incorrect account. Maybe you go back and see if the originator is putting the wrong account. Maybe it's the same originator from these 11 account requisitions, and maybe they're placing the wrong account. And maybe if you have a conversation with them, you'll be able to change what they're doing so they don't have to have any rejected requisitions. The bottom cell, which goes the width of the page here, is activity summary by originator. And what this is saying is how many recs have been rejected, total rejections, approved, pending approval, and not submitted within the whole system, regardless of dates. So as I scroll here, if I highlight Frank for a second, you can see he has 11 rejected, total rejected, but he has over 1,000 requisitions not submitted. So again, these metrics are giving a manager or a user that's using these cells to say, wait a second, why does Frank have over 1,000 recs not submitted? Maybe he shouldn't be putting these recs into the system until he knows that it needs to be submitted. So maybe you need to have a conversation with Frank saying, well, we want the system to be clean. So please, when you go into a requisition, please try to have it submitted. And if you can, go into the system and delete the ones that are not submitted that are never going to be submitted. You can also see that he has 443 approved. He has 173 that are pending approval. So they could be a pending requisition means it can be anywhere in the approval process, but it has not been approved and a PO has not been created. And this will go for any user in the system that has entered a requisition. Now we get to activity detail by originator. And this cell tells me how many recs have been approved, rejected, and the average hours it takes to approve or reject those recs for these specific originators / users. Frank here has the most approved and the most rejected recs, but it's taking a very long time for the approvers to approve Frank's requisitions. And 15 hours is almost 2 work days. This is within your organization, you may say, this is way too long. Who's holding up the process here? And then you may want to go into those requisitions and see why it's taking so long for those requisitions to be approved or rejected. The last cell that we have is the approver activity summary cell. Now this cell is very powerful. What it tells me is all the approvals will be listed here. And it will tell me how long it took them to approve or reject a requisition within the system, regardless of date at this point. So for Frank, it's taking him an average of 3.1 hours to approve or reject requisitions that are in his queue. And you might think that's acceptable or not acceptable within your organization, but Supervisor 1 is taking him an average of 123.3 hours to approve or reject a requisition. And we know that that's definitely not acceptable. So then you might go to a Supervisor 1 and say, why is it taking you so long to approve these recs? Is there a problem? Do you need to get other people involved? There could be a multiple of reasons why it takes him a while to approve requisitions. But at least from this cell, you can tell who was approving recs in a timely fashion and who was not approving recs in a timely fashion. Now also, you'll notice that some of these cells in the average hours column are red. So there's a system setting in iPurchase that allows you to place an hour into the system setting to turn these cells red. So the system setting may be set at 2. So anything above 2 hours is turning red. You can also set the system to have warnings, which will turn the cell yellow. Okay? So since the cell then would be yellow, that would be a warning to you to say, maybe I should talk to this person before it turns red to make him understand or her understand that it's taking them longer than expected to approve or reject requisitions. Now, any of these cells can be exported to Excel, as you can see by the Excel word next to each of the title names, or you can export the whole dashboard to Excel. And then you can use pivot tables or graphing to show the data in different ways. Now let's move up to the top half of the screen, which we have not discussed yet. The top half of the screen are filter fields. These filter fields allow you to change the data that's in all of these 5 cells below. So, for example, I'm going to do a couple examples here. So, if I want to filter by originator, so here's the originator. Now, the originator has a magnifying glass in the field, which means it's a lookup field. So, since we are highly integrated, all you have to do is type the first 3 characters of the originator's name, and you should get a list of all the originators that fall into that criteria that I'm typing. So if I type in FRA, you'll notice that Frank comes up. If I click on Frank, it puts Frank in the field. And then I click on the metrics button, and now it's only showing me data that Frank is the originator for. Okay? So you'll notice now here's the activity by detail by originator. It's only Frank. Okay? The rejection codes came down, or the count came down. There was 11 approved recs for the month of May. Now there's 10. You'll notice the activity summary by originator is here. Is Frank and the buyer. And then you'll notice that the approver activity summary has changed also because it's only requisitions that Frank is the originator to. And now you can see there's a yellow field here. So this is a warning field. And let's do another example. I'm going to take Frank out of the originator now, and I'm going to do it based on supplier. And again, it's a lookup field. So I can either use the supplier name or the supplier number if I'd like. So let's use the supplier number. And now you'll notice that multiple suppliers came up because 500 is in their supplier number. I'm going to pick CDW here. I'm going to click the metrics button again. And now it changed again. So now Frank's, that he's the originator for, has gone from 443 to 360 because he only has 360 approved requisitions for CDW as the supplier. But what you can see is, from this approver activity summary cell, is now the supervisor, which had an average hours of 123 hours, has now gone up to 142 hours. So maybe this is the reason why Supervisor 1 is having issues approving requisitions. Because maybe there's something with the supplier for CDW that's making him take him a lot of time to approve these requisitions or even reject them. As you can see, all the data is changing. Now there's only 8 rejected for the CDW requisitions. There's only 5 approved recs in May for CDW. Let's do another. We're going to do 2 more examples of how this filter works. So if I cancel out the supplier, we can do it by item. I'm going to do the same 3 characters. I'm going to pick the first item. I'm going to click the metric screen here. And as you can see, all of it changes again. Now supervisor is down to 120 hours. This item in the requisition. So it's only showing me now requisitions that item 22-100 is in. Only one rec for the month of May. As Frank goes, he only has 348 instead of the 443 now, when he's the originator. The final filter criteria I'm going to use is I'm going to do 2 fields. So you can use as many of these fields as you want. It doesn't have to be one-off. So now I'm going to do the rec type equals expense, and the buyer equals buyer. I'm going to filter again, and again. So now Frank's approver activity summary, it only takes him 8.7 hours to approve the recs with these 2 criteria in them, where the supervisor went back up to 134.4. Okay? So as you can see, the data is dynamic. It changes as you change the filter criteria on the top. The one last thing I'm going to talk about filter criteria is you can create favorites views. So as you can see, I have a drop-down menu here of the filters views. So I can do daily approvals, all expense requisitions, CDW pending, this week's recs. So I can save, as an administrator, I can save system views, or I can save my own views. So I can do Frank's pending requisitions. And now these are just all the requisitions that are pending, that are Frank's. So you can see none have been approved. You only have 13 recs approved for this. He's got a total of 6 rejected. There's 174 pending. So these are only Frank's pending requisitions. And if the system administrator would like to give you security rights to create views, then you get this little square button and you can create new views from there. And you can save them and just run the views in the future, so it takes much less time than actually going into each one of these fields and setting up the filter criteria every single time you want to come in and change this. You can do it, but you can also do it by date fields, date ranges, date, costs, app date ranges. So there's multiple ways of using this filter criteria to show you what data you'd like to see in the metric screen. That is the high-level overview of process metrics within the iPurchase solution. At this point, I'm going to toss it back to Kelly for our conclusion.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I just want to add that iPurchase reads the QAD supplier master table, the item master table in real time, as well as it writes to the QAD purchase order table in real time. This eliminates the need for redundant data entry, obviously. It reduces also human error, and it improves efficiency and enhances productivity. Master file data, as you know, is maintained in one place in QAD. iPurchase not only works with QAD EA, it will also work with any ERP solution that can be integrated with iPurchase to allow a user to create a purchase order in their ERP solution after a request is approved. With that, I'd like to thank you all for joining the webinar. Please feel free to contact Mike or myself. Our contact information is on the screen. Again, my name is Kelly Anderson, kanderson@issgroup.net. My phone is 973-850-4452, or you can contact Mike at Michael Markowitz at markowitz@issgroup.net, and his phone number 973-850-4448. Or you can send an email to our group email box on our website, which is sales@issgroup.net. Again, I'd like to thank you all for joining our demonstration today. Hope you join us next week, and please feel free to reach out to us if you'd like to schedule a personal demonstration of any of our solutions. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.